Hi, welcome to Eric's Movie Corner. I'm Eric, and I'm here to talk about movies. Today is the last day of 2022, which means we're going to take a look back on the year in movies, and I'm going to give you a top 10, in my opinion, of course, and some honorable mentions as well that didn't quite make the top 10, but I think are worth checking out as well. A couple of notes before we get into it here. One note is that I haven't seen everything. I did watch 76 new releases this year. So I have seen quite a few, but there are some that are not going to appear on the list at all. They're probably very good, but I just haven't seen them. Tar is one I've heard a lot of good things about, but have not had the opportunity to check out yet. The other one that a lot of people are probably going to get a little mad about is Avatar: The Way of Water. I have not seen this movie yet because I don't want to see this movie. Those who know me know I live my life in a very deliberate manner in order to try and avoid commercials and advertisements and trailers. I pay for the NFL Red Zone channel so I don't have to watch commercials while I watch football on Sunday. I pay for the ad-free version of Hulu. I pay for YouTube Premium so I don't have to watch ads on YouTube. But even with that being the case, the overdrive marketing campaign for Avatar has still saturated my being, and I'm just so tired of it. I just want it to go away and never come back. Also, a lot of people are taking their children to see this movie. Well, here's the thing. Those of you who have children or have jobs that require you to work with children can back me up on this. From November to about March, children are little disease factories. They catch whatever is out there and they will pass it on to you in a second. So, given the number of children attending Avatar right now, I do not want to subject myself to that because I don't want to come home with COVID and the flu and herpes and smallpox or whatever else is out there. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to chill for a while. Maybe like at the end of January. I'll catch a weekday matinee or something, just try and avoid the crowds because I'm not up for that experience. I'm sure James Cameron made a visually stunning movie because he always does. But I haven't seen it, so it's not going to be on this list. Sorry. That being said, let's get into it. At number 10, I have a movie from Norway called The Innocents. This is classified as a horror movie. And it's about a group of children that discover that they have mind powers. And also, the strength of their mind powers seems to increase when they're in a group together. I enjoyed this movie for its premise. Also, the fact that there's some really good child acting in this movie, which is not always the case. Also, I think it would have been really easy to go over the top with this concept, but it's very subdued, very laid back. It's probably going to seem a little boring to some people, but I actually really enjoyed that. Trigger warning, there is violence to animals in this movie, so that is there, but I think it is an excellent movie and worth checking out if you're into horror movies. That's The Innocents. Number 9. Number 9 is a, sci-fi thriller, maybe, I guess I call it, called Kimi. Directed by Steven Soderbergh and starring Zoe Kravitz. This initially was released on HBO Max and was only available there for a while. I believe it is now available for paid video on demand rental on the most popular services that do that. This is a kind of a modern retelling of Rear Window, which is a classic Hitchcock film. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. Kimi does a really good job of kind of playing with the whole premise in a different way that applies to a different situation in modern day society. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend Kimi. Number 8 is Emily the Criminal, starring Aubrey Plaza and Theo Rossi, who you may recognize if you ever watched Sons of Anarchy. This is kind of a drama / thriller. Our main character, Emily, played by Aubrey Plaza, is kind of on the, I don't want to say the fringes of society because that's not true. However, she has a criminal record, and even though she doesn't seem to be a horrible person, that criminal record really keeps her back from achieving some of the things she'd like to be able to do. As such, she finds it much easier to make financial gain by engaging in illegal activities. So I think it's kind of an interesting examination of how that works in American society. And also Aubrey Plaza is just awesome. She's a great actress. I really enjoyed her in this. That's Emily the Criminal. Number 7 is a movie called X. X is a horror movie directed by Ty West, starring Mia Goth, Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow, and Kid Cudi. This movie, Ty West has really become a great director over the years. I don't think any of his movies I would describe as bad. I have preferred some over others. However, this one I really loved, particularly because it's set in the late 1970s and has the aesthetic of a 70s grindhouse movie. Clearly, Ty West has seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 5,000 times and is seeped into his soul, because that's really the vibe of this movie. There are a couple scenes that, even though they're not the same things happening from Texas Chainsaw, certainly seem like they could have come straight out of that movie. So I really enjoyed the aesthetic of this movie. It's also a great horror movie. It's about a group of young people who are making pornography, who rent a house from this old couple at their farm, and things don't go as planned. I'll just leave it there. So if you're in a horror, I would recommend X. Number 6 is going to be another horror movie called Barbarian. This movie is directed by Zach Cregger, and it stars Georgina Campbell and Bill Skarsgård, as well as Justin Long. This movie is really one of the most surprising things I watched this year. I went to the theater, and let me tell you, when you watch this movie, when you watch it, the first 20 minutes of this movie, the first act, you're going to think you know exactly where this movie is going. Trust me, you don't. And that's what makes this movie pretty great. It's full of surprises. It gives the viewer whiplash as it switches points of view throughout the movie. I think it's a really original presentation and some really good stuff. Thinking back on it afterwards, yeah, you can find a bunch of plot holes, but I guarantee you're not going to be thinking about that while you're watching a movie. You're just going to be thinking, what's going on? And I love that feeling myself, so I recommend Barbarian. Number 5 is a Taiwanese zombie movie called The Sadness. Now, this was initially released exclusively on the Shudder streaming service. I don't know if that's still the case or not. I haven't checked. However, it's worth noting that Shudder, which is a streaming service dedicated to horror fans, felt the need to put a content warning at the beginning of this movie. So the incredibly graphic violence in this movie was enough that the streaming service dedicated to horror felt it was worth warning their viewers about. So that should really tell you something. Don't watch this if you have a weak stomach, because it is violence and gore, which I have not seen very often. It's also an original presentation of the whole zombie idea. You can nitpick zombie terminology, whatever, infected, whatever you want to call it. However, the thing that makes this movie unique is that the infected seem to still know what they're doing when they're doing it. It's kind of a interesting take. So if you're into extreme gore and violence and like a good zombie flick, I would check out The Sadness. Number 4 on the list is going to be The Curse, or The Cursed, if you want to sound fancy. This is a movie set in 19th century France. This is a werewolf flick. I am a sucker for a good werewolf movie, and this is a good one. There have been many, many bad werewolf movies, as well as some good ones along the way. The ratio is not what I'd like it to be, however. But The Cursed is a good one. If you're into a good period piece werewolf movie, go check it out. It is excellent. Number 3 on the list is going to be Top Gun Maverick. I probably can't tell you anything about this movie that you don't already know. It is a Top Gun sequel. It stars Tom Cruise, as well as Miles Teller, among others. It is the sequel to Top Gun, and man, is it way better than I ever thought it was going to be. I went to see it out of sheer curiosity, and it ended up being a really, really good movie. So, if by some chance you haven't seen it yet, and you're into Top Gun at all, definitely check out Top Gun Maverick. It is a very good sequel. Number 2 on the list is going to be The Menu. This is a comedy slash thriller slash horror movie starring Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy, as well as Nicholas Hoult and John Leguizamo. Judith Light is in this movie. There's a whole bunch of people you'll recognize in this movie. It is an ensemble cast. There's a bunch of people all in the same room during this movie. This movie is one of my favorite of the year. One reason is because it skewers foodie culture, and I've always had a good time laughing at food snobs, just because I'm a, give me grilled cheese type of guy. So I found that entertaining. And then as we get into it, things get there's a definitely hard left turn at about 45 minutes into the movie where you're like, whoa, okay, maybe it is a horror movie. So I really enjoyed this movie. Anya Taylor-Joy is one of my favorite actresses. Not only is she an excellent actress, but she's also, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful women in the world. I could just stare at her eyes until the end of time. It's amazing. I'm a sucker for Anya Taylor-Joy, and The Menu is a great movie. Ralph Fiennes puts in an awesome performance as the chef in this movie, so definitely check out The Menu. And my number one movie of 2022 is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. This movie is directed by the Daniels. It stars Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Hsu, Ke Huy Quan, and Jamie Lee Curtis. This is one of the most original movies I have ever seen in my entire life, which is hard to do these days. Very few studios will give a chance to an original movie. Everybody wants to go on tried and true IP and recycle stuff rather than come up with anything new. So I really like studios like A24 that give independent artists the chance to create their vision with a movie, which is what they did here. It ended up paying off for them because I believe Everything Everywhere All at Once ended up being the number one grossing box office movie that A24 has ever released. It was very successful, and it didn't do like huge box office numbers compared to all the Marvel stuff. But given the fact that it had a relatively low budget and it started with a limited release in theaters, it had legs and it just kept going and going and going. And I believe in its fifth week of release, it actually grossed more week over week, which is almost unheard of. So yeah, it was a big hit for A24. It's also great acting. Ke Huy Quan, if you don't recognize the name, this is the first film he's done in a very long time. He's the actor that played Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He was also in The Goonies. After his child acting experience, he decided that's not what he wanted to do because there weren't very many parts for Asians that weren't completely stereotyped. And then last year when Crazy Rich Asians came out, he was like, okay, well, maybe it's time to take another look at it. There's more Asian representation going on. Maybe there's a chance for something good to be involved with. And he did this movie, and he is great in this movie. This is a multiverse movie. You know what? I can't even explain what this even if I tried to explain this movie, you wouldn't understand what I'm trying to say. Just watch it. I think the experience of this movie was best summed up by one of my friends who I encouraged to watch this movie, who told me, man, for the first 30 minutes of this movie, I had no idea what was going on. I certainly didn't think by the end of it I'd be crying like a little bitch. So that gives you an idea of the range of emotions that you can experience watching this movie. I think it's fiercely original. Great visual effects done by a team of 9 people over several years because they didn't have a budget. It looks amazing, particularly considering the small number of people involved. This might be one of my favorite movies of all time. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you haven't seen it yet, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that concludes the top 10, but I have some more recommendations here because 2022 was a great year for movies. Man, there were so many good ones that came out this year. And even with these honorable mentions, I'm still not going to hit everything I liked. If you really want to see my full list of what I watched and what my ratings were, I leave a link to my Letterboxd account in the section below for all my videos here. So go check out my Letterboxd account, watch my 2022 movie list, and you'll be able to see everything else I watched that I haven't mentioned here today. Honorable mentions. Robert Eggers came out with his latest film, The Northman. He has been hit and miss with his precisely 2 movies before this. The Witch, I loved. The Lighthouse, I did not. So I really had no idea what I was going to get here with The Northman. Is a retelling of the Norse mythology that actually inspired Hamlet. So the story may seem familiar while you're watching it, but still, his visual presentation is amazing. So if you're into some Viking violence, check out The Northman. I also recommend Nope. It's the latest film from Jordan Peele, who did Get Out and Us. This, I think, personally, is his weakest film. However, it is still quite good. Also original, not quite like stuff I've seen before it. And again, you think you know what it is, and it's not quite exactly what you think it is. So I'd recommend checking out Nope. Smile was a surprise hit horror movie this year. I think it grossed worldwide over $200 million on a relatively small budget for a Hollywood film. So it stars Sosie Bacon. Longtime horror fans have been a little salty about it because it does take some ideas from earlier horror movies. However, that didn't bother me as much as it seems to bother some people. I think its execution is excellent, and if you're not a jaded horror fan, it's probably going to scare the pants off you. So I would check out Smile if you want a good scare. Pearl is another movie that's worth checking out. This is a really interesting movie to me. It is directed by Ti West. This is the first time I think this has ever happened. If somebody knows of this happening before, let me know. Put it in a comment below. I can't think of an instance where it has, where the same director has come out with a movie and a prequel for that movie in the same calendar year. Kind of impressive. So Ti West came out with X, and then later the same year came out with Pearl. Pearl stars Mia Goth playing the role of one of the characters from X earlier in their life, kind of giving you a backstory of what happened there and why they end up the way they do. Mia Goth gives an award-winning performance in Pearl. Really, really amazing stuff. So I didn't quite like it as much as X, just because it doesn't have that same aesthetic that I love so much. However, I have nothing but great things to say about Mia Goth and her performance in this movie. So if you want to see a good horror lead, check it out, Pearl. Prey is another one. This movie wasn't on my radar for whatever reason. It's directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who I'm actually a fan of. I've been following him since back when he was one of the hosts on the Totally Rad Show. I don't know if any of you out there used to watch that. It was one of the first web shows out there in the 2000s. It is a prequel to Predator, and it's really interesting. It's set in the 1700s in the Comanche Nation. It's about a bunch of Native Americans and their tribal culture. The lead character is a woman who wants to be a hunter but is not allowed to be because that's not the female's role in that society. But she pretty much learns how to do it anyway. And when the predator comes to Earth looking for a hunt, she puts up a good fight. So yeah, it's I think the best Predator sequel. Even though it's a prequel, I will say it's the best Predator movie that's come out since the original. The Predator itself is also a little bit different since it's set a few hundred years earlier than the original movie. I thought there was some really interesting stuff here as far as the development of the Predator, and also just seeing the Comanche Nation presentation. There's a Comanche dub of this movie. It's only available on Hulu, as far as I know. In countries where Hulu is not available, I believe it's on Disney Plus, but I think it's a streaming exclusive. It's not going to get a theatrical release, unfortunately. I would love to see it on the big screen, but I highly recommend Prey, Prey. Next one is another horror movie. This one's a witch movie. The idea of witches in this movie is different than I've seen elsewhere. Which is one of the reasons I enjoyed it. This is a Macedonian movie, which is a little different. I don't think I'd ever seen a Macedonian movie before this one. And it is set in the past and follows the story of a witch and her journey through life. I think this movie is really trying to say something about the human condition, which might sound a little weird since it's a witch movie, but I would encourage you to check it out. If you're looking for not your traditional witch, don't let the subtitles scare you. I'm always encouraging people to watch foreign films with subtitles because, man, let me tell you, if you shut yourself off from foreign movies, you're missing some good stuff. And this is one of them. You Won't Be Alone is a recommendation for me. And then last but not least, Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. This movie, unfortunately, is only available through Roku. You can go to Roku.com, their website, and watch it there. Or if you have a Roku device, they have a streaming channel there that you can watch it on. The reason I say unfortunately is because they cram it full of commercials. Which, given my preamble about Avatar, yeah, not a fan of that. I really wish I could buy it on disc. However, if you're a fan of Weird Al, this is an absolute must-see because it's a faux biopic of Weird Al and takes some of the tentpole facts of his career and spins a ridiculous fiction around them that ends up being very funny and entertaining. So I, even with the commercials, would recommend checking out Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. So that's going to do it for today. Like I said, those aren't the only good movies that came out this year. So go check out my Letterboxd. Link is below, and all the rest of what I enjoyed is listed there. Hopefully you had a good 22 and have enjoyed your holiday season. All right, ready to ring in the new year. I look forward to seeing you back here in 2023 in Eric's Movie Corner.